Now, moving on, as we are all set to embark on this panel discussion, I would like to call up here on stage CEO Executive Access India. Please put your hands together for Mr. Agamjeet Dang, who I am so elated to welcome up here on stage. Come on, everybody. A very good evening to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to all of you for taking your time out on a busy Thursday evening and coming and joining us on this very special occasion. Uh, this used to be quite a norm and a course pre-COVID years, but I think post-COVID there's been a lot of redefinition of how we really do these engagements. So we are very happy to have all of you here in person to come and join us for this event and meet us face to face. But again, COVID has taught us so many things that this is not just about events in person, but also physical virtual events. So a lot of our people have requested us for virtual audience. So I'm very happy that there are many of you who've not been able to join us in person, but are there virtually with us. Uh, Without further ado, I think I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome our Panorama partners who've come from across the globe here. And I think if we can just quickly have you raise your hands up and just show everyone who you all are, while you're very identifiable here today. But thank you so much. You've known Executive Access over the years as a firm which has been very relevant in India, but some of you may not know or may know but have not encountered. We're also the founding members of Panorama, which is a global body of executive search firms across the globe. And we've got our partners who come from countries like Brazil, Argentina, Finland, US, other parts of Europe as well. So thank you so much for all of you to have joined us, and thank you so much in the audience, to take this time out. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very topic which is very close to our heart, which we are sharing today, and which, for which we have a absolute stellar star cast. I'm absolutely bowled over by, the participants who are, sharing the dais with us today. So this is, something which India is grappling with, the world is grappling with, which is the dynamics of the boards, both as we see today and what lies ahead. And we couldn't have imagined a better star cast than what we have today. So without, taking more time, let me introduce them one by one. I'll be very quick on this. First up, we have none other than Ordinary Brigadier Dr. Arvind Lal, Padma Shri. Dr. Lal, if you can just come on the stage while we welcome him with a huge round of applause. Dr. Lal, as you know, is synonymous with diagnostics in India. He's built one of the largest franchises, which goes by the name of Dr. Lal Path Labs. And we are so fortunate to have you here, sir. But that's not the only thing. He's also, he's also a Padma Shri now. He's also, someone who's been the first civilian doctor to be, granted an honorary brigadier's rank by the President of India and the Armed Forces. So welcome, sir. Welcome to the panel today. Second on the list, we have Mr. Nakul Anand. Mr. Nakul Anand, if you can come on the stage with a huge round of applause. I don't think he needs any introduction. He runs one of the most recognizable luxury hospitality chains in the country. He's also the whole-time director at ITC. ITC, as you all know, is one of the largest Indian conglomerates, and Mr. Nakul Anand has been with them for the last 40 years. And apart from obviously many other things that he's known for, I think we all have seen the journey of ITC over the years, and what we have really transformed, as one of the largest conglomerates is something that you've been very integral part of. So thank you so much for coming, sir. Thank you so much. Third up, we have Mr. Uday Kumar Hebar. Uday, if you can just come on the stage, please, with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Uday runs the largest microfinancial institution in the country, which goes by the name of Credit Access Grameen. Uh, I believe Uday knows India like nobody else knows. He's been a banker par excellence. He's got 30 plus years of career in banking, mostly into rural banking. And like I said, there is the amount of India that he knows, no Unilevers of the world can teach. So thank you so much, Uday, for joining on the stage. Our next panelist today is Sumita Sriranti. Sumita, if you can come on the stage, please. With a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Sumita. Sumita now is the chairperson for Schaeffler India and Aviva Life Insurance India. She's chairing both the boards. She's also steered boards, of other companies in the past. And, apart from obviously the heavy lifting that she does on the boards, Sumita has also been a leading voice on technology for over 2.5 decades of her professional career, both in India and overseas, mostly with SAP, where she was a very senior leader across the globe. I've had the fortune of interacting with Sumita many times over, and the roles that she plays in boards, I think a lot of the future that lies ahead, I'm sure Sumita will have a lot to contribute today as well. So thank you, Sumita, and welcome to the panel today. Our next panelist is Mr. Manoj Kohli. Manoj, if you can come on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a huge round of applause. Manoj is the chairman and managing partner of MK Knowledge. He's been an independent director. He's been known, for the longest time as, as the head of SoftBank India, where he was obviously driving the fortunes of the portfolio companies which SoftBank had in their portfolio, much like Ola, Oyo, Lenskart, Grofers, Snapdeal, WeWork, Meesho. I can go on and on, but the kind of companies that he's advised is phenomenal. He was also the executive director of SoftBank Energy before that, and not to say the least, he was also the managing director and CEO of Bharti Airtel, which is one of the largest telecom franchises that the country has seen and obviously known world over now. So welcome, Manoj. Welcome so much to the panel. We have someone from Panorama also to, share the panel with us. None other than our chairman of Panorama, Mr. Roy Herald. Roy, if you can come on the stage. Roy runs one of the largest executive search and leadership advisory firms based out of Finland and the whole of Nordics, which goes by the name of MPS. Managing director of MPS in the world over. And apart from that, he's a 30-year professional before that, where he's worked with organizations like Philip Morris, Diageo, and not only that, he's also been the chairman of Electrolux Finland and a former CEO of BAT Nordics. So welcome, Roy, welcome to the panel, and I'm sure you'll bring a lot of international perspective to this conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing happens in this firm without the man who's built this firm for the last 28 years, and who better to discuss this topic further than our Managing Director, Executive Access India, Ronesh Puri. Can we please put a huge round of applause to Ronesh? Ronesh has been at the helm of affairs for the last 28 years. He's seen the corporate world change. He's seen these boardroom conversations change. And today he's taken the mantle upon himself to introduce this panel and to have a dialogue with them on what lies ahead for us. So welcome, Ronesh. Welcome to the panelists. Thank you so much. Looking forward to an engaging conversation.
Good evening, everyone. It's really an honor when you have 6 wise men in front of you. And I'm sure we are headed for a very enlightening evening. Each one of them has made history, and I think there's a lot that we can learn. In executive search, we always say people make companies. Some experts think boards make the company. So it's a topic that we are going to share and discuss, and at the end of it, I think we'll have an answer. Some of the questions that I'm going to put to them, we have had an online questionnaire spread. Over 100 independent directors in the country have answered that. So let's see which of you gets it right. So the first, you'll be put the questions. At the end of it, we'll say what the public opinion is on the same topic. I would request the panelists to be frank, forthright, challenge each other. I think all of you want to get different perspectives, and have great insights from each one of them. Without any further ado, Manoj, can I begin with you? Manoj, what do you think should be the construct and composition of a board? Sector specialist, agnostic, technocrats, journalist. How would you compose a board?
Anyway, welcome to this panel, all of you. I believe that the power of a board is directly dependent on the diversity of the board. You can't have a one-track board which thinks one way. Because I'm saying this because there are 4 key roles of the board, and the membership depends on that. Number 1, strategy and business model, profitable business model. Number 2, high performance and tracking performance. Number 3, work culture, because culture is very, very vital for, culture of the company is very vital for long-term success. And 4th, governance and compliance. If these are the 4 legs of the stool, then the board membership has to be diverse to contribute to each of these. So it needs to have domain specialists, especially the business domain specialists. Needs to have governance guys, needs to have strategy guys, need to have high performance culture builders, need to have women board members who contribute to many, many areas which maybe some men board members can't contribute. So I believe that more the diversity, more the power of a board.
Wonderful. Subhita, you want to take Manoj on?
Sure. I think he did touch upon a lot of important aspects. The way I look at it, what kind of member should board have depends on the phase of the company. So if you're a traditional company and you're trying to innovate yourself, you need to get thinkers who are not from your area, who are not industry specialists. And that would give a huge impetus and different way of thinking. As to diversity, gender is one and only one aspect, but is an important aspect. The reason is, I think women and men think differently. Our experiences are different. Women, by definition, in my experience, are minority everywhere. Look at the panel here. It's been the way all my life, wherever I have been. So bringing a minority perspective is important in many ways. One, for the business, and also to bring down the conditioning that we have built within ourselves. And this conditioning drives business growth, business decisions. And sometimes when we have only men on the board in the company, I have a feeling sometimes we forget half the economy, which are women. And from a diversity perspective, these days, even the gay, lesbian community is gaining more importance. Also, age diversity is gaining a lot of importance. In fact, I know many, many boards who are looking for younger board members. So some aspects like this. And I have known companies which are not focusing on growth right now. So, but they are looking at which business model to focus on in the near future. They're building it up. So then you need lateral thinkers. You need people from completely different industries. So if you're insurance, bring somebody from consumer products. Or bring some, and technology is an important aspect just from the cybersecurity, etc. And that is not a topic that many people know or are familiar with. So there are so many aspects to consider. Bring board members fundamentally who are willing to contribute, and I myself would like to be on boards of companies which expect contribution from board members.
Nakul, would you rather have people from the same industry with industry knowledge or get diversity?
Ramesh, firstly, you put a hotelier in a very difficult situation. I've had 2 people speak and we are told never to disagree with anybody. Right? So you asked me the wrong question. My first lesson as a management trainee was with a Swiss professor who was my mentor, and he says that you're going to be a hotelier, and he says, when you're with the baker, you talk about the bread. When you're with the butcher, you talk about the bacon. When you're with both, you talk about the sandwich. So I tend to agree with both of them as to what they have said. But yes, I must say that I've served on the ITC's board 13 years, and I've had the opportunity of working with many board members, both executive and non-executive. I think diversity is important. I think the insights that somebody can bring in who's not from the industry or totally from a different industry, the cross-learning that can take place is substantial. Therefore, I would tend to go for diversity and say that as diverse as possible. And within that, again, varied skills, no duplication of skills, different professions. He's marketing, he's FMCG, he's manufacturing, he's engineer, he's a techie, right? How can we bring him? I was just the other day talking, I was having dinner with a director from an international company. He just become a dear friend of mine. He just become a director in a large fast food company, and he'd just come from the board meeting and he'd come to India, and I was having dinner with him. So I was asking him, I said, such a large QSR, such a large, one of the world's largest chain, I said, what could you contribute to them, etc.? He says, you'll be surprised how much I could contribute to them on data. He says that being such a large QSR, they have access to so much data that they can put that AI to use, right? And what they can do with that AI is, I cannot estimate what their sales would go up by. Now, here's a non-executive director from a totally different field, bringing in a perspective, and that's really what, I was impressed that this is really what a non-executive director can do to a company. And therefore, again, diversity just proves the point of diversity.
Wonderfully put. Dr. Lal, you're a promoter. What is your perspective?
Runesh, since our background was slightly different, that we were, so-called techies or technocrats, doctors, so we had no clue what, boards are going to be and what they should look like. And we graduated from a partnership company to a private limited company in 1995. Then in 2005, we had Westbridge Capital, investing about, 28% in our business, etc., etc. So at that point of time, it was, we always knew that the board has to, be of people who can add value to me. And from my point of view, anybody who was joining our board was bringing a lot of value, because we had never dealt with boards before. And all this started, with our hiring a COO for the first time in our lives. And those who are from America, they would understand my story is something like Cisco, but it is about those two techies, Leonard Bosack and Sandy Lerner, who were husband-wife team. And they used to, make routers. And those routers, the Stanford University did not allow them to go out and sell them. So they were looking for money. They quit the jobs, and nobody would give them money. And when they got the money, the promoter or the investor, he said, you have to hire a COO or a CEO, and that was John Chambers. And what John Chambers did to Cisco, now it's a $60 billion revenue company, is something what you did to us inadvertently by giving us Om Manchanda. And after that, we built the board at the time when we went public. That was in 2015. And quite correctly, from our perspective, at least half of them had, business or investment or banking, finance people. And there was one from our line, there was one from a legal perspective, there's one from HR, etc. So I think it was a very healthy, diverse kind of a board, and we never looked back. So that's what, happened to us.
Wonderful. Uday, what's your take? You can use the other mic, I think, Uday.
Thank you. I think we spoke about diversity. We spoke about gender diversity. And then we spoke about knowledge diversity. All these are definitely, all these are required. But from my point of view, we have to have two types of contribution or a combination of directors, which is run the company and transform the company. Run the company is the normal, as you day to day, you need to support, track, manage, risk, more things. But transforming, looking beyond, look for next 5 years or 10 years, looking at sustainability, looking at, technology transformation, talent who can build and manage for next couple of years. So those kind of knowledge you can bring, that will be the additional advantage over what we are talking about, definitely. I think, we need to look at beyond the current. So always there is two sets of knowledges should be there in the board. Run the company and transform the company, irrespective which type of company it is. Right? I think there has to be a blending of these two type of contribution from board members to run a successful company.
Thank you there. Roy, what do the Nordics do? They prefer specialists or is it sector agnostic?
Thank you. I think a lot of the, how shall I say, relevant issues have already been very well covered. I think from a board composition perspective, a good board is also able to critically look at their own skills and areas of expertise, and also therefore identify in a world which we are living in, which is changing very rapidly, that what we had maybe yesterday in terms of understanding of market knowledge or whatever might not be what we need tomorrow. So to evaluate and have regular sort of understanding in terms of board evaluations or some similar stuff, I think could be very, very valuable. And I think with the shorter lifespan of any product or any service that you have nowadays, that's really critical to be able to look in the future and have what is needed on the board.
Thank you. So the public opinion on this is, most people think inducting board members from varied industry is the way to go. And very few people disagree. So I think both at the panel as well as outside, the public opinion is very, very, very clear that you need greater diversity on the table, and it's no rocket science. So compliments to the board. Dr. Lal, what would be the top 3 priorities from you, from the board? What do you expect from them?
See, India is a nice place to live in, but we also have a lot of regulations and we have SEBI, etc. So I would say that on our board, we would like to look at a person who can be very good in what you call NRC, the auditor, and those people who are there who just retired now and people have stepped into their shoes now. So I think those are the two first things which we would look at. The governance of the board also has become very, very important. And also, the board has to lead us on a proper track. For example, what do you call closed transactions? What's the word which you use? Related party transactions. So that also India is learning. India is quite young as far as all these boards are concerned, and lots of mistakes have happened. So you need somebody senior, mature to lead you through all that. And also in these days now of high tech, etc., we need board members who have a fairly good idea, as Manoj had said, of new technology, what is coming into our beings. Our pathology covers practically everything. The basic part we look after, which is the pathology testing, but what happens outside the lab, I think is very important.
Manoj, what would you say would be the top 3 priorities for the board?
Top 3?
Top 3. Only 3.
Okay, before I come to the three, but I'll tell you the overall, what if I am the chairman or I am the founder like Dr. Lal, what is the attitude I expect from my board members? Let me start with that. I think the first and foremost, I expect high degree of courage to warn me or warn the company
To challenge?
about the disruptions, constant disruptions which will hit the business in the next 3 to 5 years. Because if that board member doesn't have that conviction or courage to bluntly, candidly tell me that, then the value addition will be low. So that's the overall attitude issue. So I think board members should know how to challenge with data, with facts, with a clear idea about the future evolution. Now coming to three contributions. Number one and most important is long-term strategy. Because company exists for long-term and the strategy and the direction of the company has to be decided by the board. It is not a tactical board, it is a long-term strategic board. Number two, as I said, it has to lay down clear governance, culture, and especially related party, as Dr. Lal said, because frankly, if the decision making is not on merits, if the ethical way is not accepted fully, then again the board is not playing its role. Board really has to stand very strongly with ethics, very strongly with good governance, and only then, and you see nowadays, if you see examples of last 1 or 2 years, many boards have stood very, very strongly and tall in front of chairmen or founders who have kind of gone haywire.
So you think companies like ILFS, DHFL, if they had board members with spine, they would be where they are?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, there should be a spine test of the board members before they join the board. So,
Dr. Lal, you have a test for that?
I think in this changing scenario, not only the board members have to come out with something, of spine. In my profession, if people who are from India, they would know that there are 300,000 labs here. And the labs are the ones which are the most discredited kind of a, profession in India. I think every day we must be having 10 new labs because the entry levels are very easy. So it's very easy to get astray. The wrong things, what is known as the Indian jugaad. But this is in all the wrong kind of a jugaad which Indians are used to. So that's where I 100% agree with Manoj, that you need to, people who are absolutely ramrod straight. Yes, you can be little bit of bending, flexibility has to be there. But it should not be that the boss, what he says is always right. They should be able to direct you and say, this is not the path which you should take.
Manoj, you have the third one.
the third one, as I said, deep performance focus. And tracking performance, seeing the warning bells early, because every performance, you can note the warning bells, give the warning bell to the management team very early. And that means that the board members have to be hands-on to the business, to the industry, to the sector, global developments of that business, and say that your performance is faltering. And these are the 2-3 ideas, and board should discuss those ideas. Because frankly, board, if the performance is not good, how can board member validate his own presence or her own presence? So I believe these are the three vital three.
How difficult is it to show a spine to, especially to a promoter who wants you to be a conformist?
No, I'll tell you, the board member cannot be dependent on that company. I mean, as an employee, I can tell you, I've done 45 years of my career now, and I was never dependent on the company I worked in. Financially, I was independent. If I had left the company, it won't impact my lifestyle. I think that is a fundamental issue for being neutral, for being objective, for being fair in decision making. Otherwise, you will always be a parrot. You will follow the chairman and say, yes sir, 3 bags. So you can't do that. You have to be strong in your convictions and strong financially.
Right.
Should not be dependent.
Nakul, what would be your top 3?
I'll go back to a real life example, and I think the worst period of my 45-year career was the pandemic, because I was in an industry that was hit the worst. I've opened over 50 hotels, and every time you open a hotel, you look at it and you say, it'll never shut now, inshallah, because that's why you open a hotel, it's 24/7, never. But here we were at a stage, overnight, hotels had to be shut down, yet they had to be kept alive, you had to keep the AC on, etc., etc. We are all working from home. Lay off people, don't lay off people, what do you do with them? Profits, you're negative by, I mean, you can't imagine what it was. You're in a stage of absolute depression, etc. Anyway, operating from home, began to look at various things, what to do, etc. And then one morning I woke up and I asked myself, I said that, aren't I getting too micro? One day this pandemic has to get over, and one day there's going to be something different that's going to happen. That's where I began to follow the phrase that, and at that stage, one eye on the microscope, one on the telescope, right? So I put one eye on the microscope, cutting down costs, cutting down what to do for people, and in doing so created 3 teams. A survival team, which looked after people who were sick, houses, send oxygen cylinders, hospitalization, that's the survival. Revival, once things begin to open, how do you open a hotel back? How do you get people back, right? And one is a thrival, how do you thrive in the new tomorrow? Because there's going to be a different tomorrow. Are people still going to want large banquets? Are people still going to travel as much? Are people going to work from home? Will business travel go? So there were 3 separate task forces. After the pandemic finished, I then said, let me apply this to the board. And I was in a discussion, one of the boards that I chair, which is the Travel House board, I was in a discussion with my board members, etc. And suddenly this occurred to me again, one eye on the microscope, one on the periscope or telescope, whatever you may call it. I said, no, the board can't keep an eye on the microscope. That is somebody else's job. But then I corrected myself. And I said, yes, the board has to have one eye on the microscope, but on specific things, corporate governance, ESG, which are non-negotiable. The board has to look at that with a microscope, absolutely. Day-to-day operations, leave it to the others to do. And the second eye on the telescope as to what is going to happen tomorrow. Manoj rightly mentioned it. Performance-driven, where are we going tomorrow? Today's performance is no guarantee of tomorrow's performance. We are sitting in the board. We are not involved in day-to-day operations. We have a helicopter view of what is going to happen. We hopefully are reading more than what the others are because we have more time, and we are able to picture tomorrow better than. And then have the guts to call a spade, be a straight shooter, tell the board where you are. And I love the point that Manoj made, which it's never occurred to me before. If you're dependent on that board or dependent on that company, you will never make an ideal board member. I think that's my biggest takeaway. Thank you, Manoj, for that.
How difficult is it to dissect? Yes, chairman has an idea. He's very, very passionate about it.
Sorry?
How difficult is it for you to dissect in a board meeting? Chairman has an idea he's very passionate about, 100% convinced that's the way to go. You have an alternate view.
Data, logic can always convince a person. If you have a strong viewpoint, right, and that is backed by data, it is backed by sound logic, it is backed by an alternative strategy, and reasons why you don't agree with that, I don't think there's any reason why, unless you are in the wrong.
Nakul, a little louder.
Sorry,
online people can't hear.
I'm sorry.
So we request all the panelists be a little louder. Yes, please.
No, as I said, that I think that if you are convinced, you are obviously convinced by virtue of logic, by virtue of perhaps data, by virtue of knowledge, etc. I'm sure you can put your point across and say why that particular strategy is not correct. Rest is obviously up to the chairman, but I think you must make your point. And if you are convinced, then you're obviously convinced because of a reason. Then come out with it.
Smita, what's your take? And as a chairperson of a multinational board, how much do you welcome Dasent? And what's your take
On the top three.
on the top three priorities?
Yes. You know, I would phrase the top point as the board should help the company be true to itself and its stakeholders. The reason why I'm saying this is I've been fortunate enough to work with boards of pretty much a startup. I think I'm loud enough? Yeah.
Online they are having a little problem, so
Okay.
a little louder. This is
Okay,
fine.
so I've been fortunate enough to work with a startup. Now, for a startup, there is nothing existing. There is no such thing as challenge the norm because they are just beginning, they are born. But even they are born with a certain characteristic in mind, with a certain vision in mind. You can always pivot a business model, but you can't be untrue to yourself because then you should become a different company, either culturally or by name or by legally, it doesn't matter. But this, I think, is very important. And when you come to traditional companies, you know, like Aviva, for example, the mother company is more than 300 years old. There, it is about challenging the norm, but challenge the norm to the extent that you still can be yourself. I have talked to several boards, not of which I'm part of, but several boards, let's say 3-4 years ago, when they used to come and ask me, tell us how to innovate, tell us how to deal with digital disruption, should we do X, Y, Z? And I used to point blank tell them, don't do it, you can't handle it. Given where you are, given the comfort with where you are, you will never be able to behave with the desperation, with the urgency, and with the passion of a startup. So don't try to be a startup, you will destroy yourself. So that's why I say board has to be very clear and help the company be true to itself. This is one of the top requirements. The second requirement is compliance and governance. Board exists for that, and we cannot take that away. And finally, it's also the personal liability of the board members if this point is not taken care of. So that is non-negotiable. The third one, I would say challenge the norm, but the third one I would change to in case of a crisis. The board should back the management and should stand by the company. And I'll tell you examples of this. I'm used to banking, and in banking, when a cyber attack happens, it is a crisis. Because at that time when it happens, you don't know the extent of loss. And it can be huge because you're dealing with people's money. So at that time, the board should have first made sure that there is a crisis plan in place, any kind of crisis, not only cyber attack. But also, there can be different other kinds of crises. They could be complaints against the management, especially when you're thinking of transforming the company. It goes through turbulence. At that point in time, the board must stand by the company. And I think all the other points that panelists have mentioned are very true, but these three kind of stand out to me.
It's putting you on a spot. If you were to choose between risk management and growing the bottom line, which one would you choose and why?
Growing the bottom line or top line?
Bottom line and risk management.
That's a difficult one. I'm a top line person, even in my personal life. I'm a top line person. The reason why I say that is, if you're focusing on the bottom line, you can only save from what you have. If you're focusing on the top line, especially in a country like India, where the growth potential is infinite if you know how to do it. So then, why focus on the bottom line? Focus on the top line, keep your risks managed. This is how I would approach.
Uday, your quick take?
My quick takes are, first is corporate governance with the transparency and, disclosures. That's most important to me from the board perspective, to create a culture of corporate governance, transparency, and disclosure. That's top priority. Second one is on a strategy to build for next 5 years or 10 years. The co-create the vision and support the management to work on that. Co-create. Vision has to be co-created between the board and the management. So then work and support the management to achieve those plans, contract, and those things. And the last one is to build the talent for the next. So if you build the talent for the next, then you have the right risk manager, the right technology manager, right HR manager for your future. I think all other things are taken care. So I think these three are my top priority.
And if you were to choose between top line and bottom line, what would you go for and why?
I would prefer bottom line.
Manoj? Which would you choose and why? Between top and bottom line?
Only bottom line.
Only bottom line. Nakul? Dr. Lal?
Well, for the, as I say, the window dressing, I think bottom line is very important. But in a profession like ours, which is basically, blood testing, etc., and knowing the numbers which we have in India, 1.4 billion people, and we, I think, tested the maximum last year by nearly 30 million people or 100,000 people in one day. I think there's a lot to be done. And India is India. And, we have so many diseases, both communicable and non-communicable or lifestyle diseases. We have to check, where we have to go finally, which is basically close to the patient, where the patients are, I would not use the word that they are, the death rate in India from ischemic heart disease, sorry, getting technical, is 10 times earlier. I mean, they suffer from all these diseases 10 years earlier. So it is our duty to go to that patient and get him to, give his blood or whatever, diagnose him. The fact of the matter is that if we don't do it, since we are the oldest and the biggest, who will? So therefore, the top line also becomes important, not so much as the number, but the number of patients. And India is a very price-sensitive country. We started testing for RT-PCR for, COVID at 4,500 rupees. And the government of India brought it down. We ourselves brought it down to even less than 500 rupees. So we are talking about a very, very diversified, kind of price point. The quality cannot suffer because, well, we are known for quality and lots of others also. So in my thing, it has to be both, a combination of bottom line, but you must show growth sometimes. The growth is important.
Two stalwarts, two different perspectives. Nakul, why did you go for the top?
I think that your pool is very limited if you're looking at the bottom line. The bottom line can't come without the top line. You asked me, you gave me a choice of only top line and bottom line, but in the hotel business, we've created something, and I created something called the R3 model, which are the 3 R's. Returns, revenue, and retention. Retention being quality, revenue being top line, and returns being there. All this is an equilateral triangle. And all 3, I call it R1, R2, all 3. Any decision making must balance all 3. You can't do revenue at the cost of profit, right? You would perhaps end up there. You can't do profit at the cost of revenue, your quality would finish. You can't do revenue in this at the cost of quality, you have a long-term problem there. So it has to be an equilateral triangle, a balance, revenue, returns, and retention.
So is it a 60-40 or 70-30 for you?
33 and 0.13131333.
See how it gets out of the corner. Manoj, is it the startup syndrome that is hitting you when you talk about bottom line? Or is it sector agnostic? You'd any day go for bottom line?
My view is completely agnostic, sector agnostic or startup agnostic. I believe that we run business and we build businesses for profitability. And it's very important that we focus on profitability. I may be running very fast, growing very fast, and there are many companies suffering from this problem. but not making money or not making enough money, which I deserve to make. So I believe, and I'm not saying that top line is not important. Top line is a input factor to the bottom line. I always have given importance of 80% to top line and 20% to cost efficiency. But finally, at the end of the day, how are you measured? How is the board measured? If it is a profitable company and profitability is improving through economies of scale, etc., then board is successful. If board is building top line in a big way, which many boards are doing, many companies are doing, but no profitability. Or if the top line is good, but cost inefficient company, which means OPEX is too high and it's not profitable. So again, there is a lopsided performance. So I'm just saying, in final analysis, it is the bottom line which measures me as a manager and the board.
Thank you. Well put. Roy, what's it like? And what would you prefer and why? Between the top and bottom.
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
I said, what would you prefer and why if there's a choice to be made between growing the top line and growing the bottom line?
I think it depends on the stage of the company. Like it has been discussed, if you're a startup, you probably want to show the potential with a good top line and growth, and eventually the revenues will come, the bottom line will come. If you are more established, it's probably more relevant to look at the bottom line to also understand the future. But if I may get back to the previous question about the three top talents or know-hows that you need in boards. If I look at one which I think is really important, since actually after COVID, we realized in our own board work that we do, that boards which were very talented and very up to speed actually had not really understood very often what was happening in the real business. And since then, boards have taken a quite sharp sort of turn to understand the business in terms of more maybe even day to day. And a big part of that has been technology. Because you have so much information, you have to present and package, and it will of course give terms of board work itself with technology, being able to understand and do the board work with material, but also for the company and for the board to stay aware what's really happening. And of course, good technology, if it's existing also in the board in terms of a person or something, that will give, in a way, confidence, and it will give security also for the board to understand what's happening in a much quicker quicker world we are living today.
In the Nordics, would the board be blamed if the bottom line went down under?
I think the same logic applies to any market in the sense that of course, top line tells you more potential or future, and the bottom line tells if the business you're doing is profitable enough to be doing what you're doing. In the Nordics, if we look at board work, as in many other markets, we still work on diversity, which is of course always an issue, which is not just men or women. It's a question of being a broad base of members who are adding value, and of course corporate governance overall. And I think board work is something which is never completed. It's ongoing, it has to evolve, it has to take into account what's happening around. Recently we've seen everything about ESG and so on, and those are things that you need to as a board to react to and go accordingly.
Great, thank you. So these are the three responses that have come from the 100 odd. So people feel corporate governance, 26%. Growing the bottom line, Manoj, 24%. Risk management, 24%. And growing the top line, 13%. Bottom line wins. Manoj, how can you future-proof the companies? What can board do? Risk is getting high, geopolitical, we don't know what's going to hit us tomorrow. Peeping in the future is never easy. Nobody was able to predict the COVID. What do you do? How much should the board crystal gaze?
I think future-proofing is a most important role of board, because sometimes management is too close to fire and they can't look at the future opportunities and risks very clearly. Whereas board is not as close to the fire. They meet once in 3 months, 2 months, whatever, and they can look at future in a neutral way. So 4 things for future-proofing. One, and most important, is technology. Technology in the next 10 years will impact human life more than last 100 years. So technology is impacting every business and can lift the business or can really kill the business. So that is number one, and board members' responsibility is to track technology. Second, geopolitics. Yesterday Ukraine, today Israel, tomorrow something else. So you will have many, many geopolitical changes every week, every month. And every geopolitical change is impacting me and my business. So the board actually has to constantly point out what can happen. Maybe Europe is my big market. Maybe Middle East is my big market. So what is happening? For example, UK, Germany are negative GDP countries now. Maybe those are my big markets. So board has to forewarn or at least ring a bell to the management during board meeting. Please be careful of this. Please find alternate markets. Third is climate change. Climate change will impact every business much more than anything else. Much more than ever in the history of mankind.
Which business do you see being impacted more?
Every business, because frankly, impact would be less or more, but every business. We already seeing, if you track last 1 year, every day you have read one climate change related crisis in different part of the world. Could be in California, could be in Vancouver, could be in Japan, could be in Thailand, could be in Russia, could be in Europe, everywhere. So again, the impact of climate change has to be tracked by the board. And last but not the least, talent. Is the future talent pipeline being nurtured or not nurtured? I think that's very important. If the management is not nurturing the future pipeline, irrigating the future leaders, then there is a problem. The sustainability of the company's success is at risk. So these are the 4 key areas which I think the board members should own and definitely work closely with the management.
Thank you. Nakul, ITC has grown in spite of any crisis, whether it's been the COVID or any other. One company that keeps growing is ITC. How have you future-proofed yourselves? And what are some of the decisions that you took at the board level that has actually led to where ITC is today? Much revert.
I've been fortunate enough to be part of a task force that was working on ITC's diversification strategy 20 years back. And we decided that focus or diversify, which was that time, you know, you were told that you can either focus or you can diversify. There was, you either focus or diversify, core competency, and C.K. Prahlad and Michael Porter and all those models. There was so much being written. Now here was the ITC board sitting and brainstorming and along with the task force and seeing that should we focus, that means should we go 1 mile deep, or should we diversify, which is 1 mile wide? What should we do? So ITC said that we will take the path less traveled. We will do both. We will focus and we will diversify. Now came the story, but how do you focus and how do you diversify? The whole I mean, the books, the Harvards, everybody was just full of all these controversies that how could we focus and diversify? This was made possible successfully, and I think the single biggest success, and this was Mr. Deveshwar's foresight, was the structure of organization. That was the structure of the organization, which was created, so the corporate governance of ITC was created into a three-tiered structure. There was strategic supervision, that was left to the board. There was strategic management, that was left to the corporate management committee. The executive directors and the head of some of the functions like HR legal sat on the corporate management committee. And then there was the executive management, which were the divisional management committees, which were the specialists, right? So in this three-tiered structure, we were able to focus and we were able to diversify. Every time we diversified, we asked ourselves two questions. Firstly, do we have a right to play? Second, do we have a right to win? Why do we have a right to play? Because certain businesses said we'll rule out. We perhaps said we don't want to get into a business that is over-regulated. Then the consumer doesn't decide, the government will decide what you have to do. We are already in a business that is regulated to a large extent, right? So you want to be in a business that is not regulated where there's a consumer. What is your right to win? There has to be some right to win as to why you are recommending that I get into the foods business. Yes, the right to win, there was synergy. That ITC has multiple drivers of growth. Let me take an example for you. Why did we get into the potato chips business, right? We have the back end of agriculture from our tobacco knowledge, where we can source the best of potatoes because of our connection with the farmers. We have the hotel business that could give you recipes, customize the taste to local places, right? There is more spice here, there's more salt here, there's more chilies here. There's the packaging division that could give you the expertise in packaging. There's what I call our traditional business that took into distribution and marketing, right? We are all over the country in the smallest place, etc. So the right to win was that we had synergies, and therefore we could take on. The right to play was what we call, you just cross them off. So first you've got to see, do I have a right to play? And then do I have a right to win? Then we got into the business, deep specialization in every business, gaining your differentiator from a competitive advantage through synergies, right? And a three-tier structure to monitor this.
One decision that ITC took that you think was a game changer at the board level?
Again, exactly what I said, diversification, right? We were only in 3 businesses, so we needed to de-risk the business. We were in cigarettes, we were in hotels, and we were in paper business, right? FMCG, all the other business, education, stationery, what we call the other FMCG, was, I think, the best decision that ITC took. It was a bold decision. You were taking on the mights of large international companies, right? And well-established, right? But ITC again said, there's a reason why we also want to get in. Again, one of the right to win was putting India first, which is what we always did. Why should I pay royalty in first thing in the morning when I brush my teeth to a company when the product is made in India? Why should I pay royalty for a can of something that I open? On every single product, I'm paying royalty, putting India first, right? Another right to play in this business.
Sumita, how important is cyber security to future-proof the companies?
Cybersecurity is one of the least understood topics. I'm from tech background, so I have some familiarity with this topic. But many board members ask me, when are we done with the cybersecurity topic? Can we say we are closed, we are done, this is finished? And I always tell them, cybersecurity is like the bank robbery of the past. I don't know if you all remember the bank robbery movies from the old Western movies. They used to come on horses, shoot somebody, take the money and go away. And then we developed lockers, then we developed cameras, and then they broke the camera and came with the stockings on the face, and then we had more sophisticated walls, and then they came through the subway. So we remember all those movies, right? Cybersecurity is very much like that. As long as there is gain in breaking the system, somebody will be interested to break the system. So you're never really done until one day, maybe we are not storing wealth, information, etc. on the internet. We are probably storing it on something else like water or energy or something like that, and that's when cybersecurity will go out of fashion. So in a sense, just like how we safeguarded physical money or gold, there will always be the cybersecurity topic that's open. So what we need to do is to make sure what are the basic elements. You need to have a framework of getting some security for yourself, some peace of mind for the board to have and the management about cybersecurity topic. What are the basic elements that you need to take care of? How to make sure that it is implemented in the right way. The second one is actually as important as the strategy, the execution, the framework, and everything. Have you done it properly? And then at some point in time, if you're happy, check with your peers, have a good network, especially in cyber crisis. Your network is what will help you, because at that point in time, everybody is so stressed that you will not be able to think straight. And the extent of damage is unknown for quite some time after it happens, and the reputation damage is very high. So have a good network in place, and then say, yes, we've done everything that we can, and so we can move forward. So that's how I would treat cybersecurity. Future-proofing, yes, of course, as long as technology, internet things are important for us, which, as we have discussed, it always will be, at least for the next decade or so, this will be an important topic.
As a chairperson of Aviva, if there's one thing that you need to do to future-proof it, what would that be?
That's hard. I can't share particulars from one board. I'm an independent chair. So what I would say from experiential knowledge, what is the one thing to future-proof? Build up an identity of who you are and stay true. See, the one thing about being in India is that there is enough to do. We've probably reached the tier 1 cities. I mean, some other panel members can tell a lot more. But when you think of banking, when you think of insurance, when you think even probably of consumer products or luxury lifestyles, we've touched the tier 1, maybe tier 2, tier 3 cities, and there's still a lot to go before every Indian gets insurance, before every Indian gets banking. So there is enough to do. Growth potential is there. So but you need to future-proof, you need to find out who you are and build execution excellence. I think execution excellence is so boring, it's underrated, but it is a very important factor for success in life. And under execution excellence comes monitoring frameworks, comes succession planning, comes business model pivoting. This is very important, but for me, that is part of life. You can't just one day think, oh, shall we pivot the business model? No, you need to constantly be aware of it. And that's why being true to yourself, as I said earlier, is important. And if you want to be true to yourself, you should know who you are. What is my identity? What do I stand for? And what do I want to stand for in 10 years' time?
Thank you. Uday, what keeps you up? Your business doesn't need to be future-proofed.
Of course, our business needs future-proofing, right?
What can disrupt it?
Sorry?
What can disrupt your business?
Oh, our business can be disrupted by anything. First of all, climate change. So if you look at climate change will impact, first, the geography what we are in is susceptible to climate change. Then the people who we deal with are more susceptible, like poor income, low income households. They are the first to be impacted by climate change, and it can disrupt actually. Sorry. But future-proofing is not just one about the business. It could be many other things. For example, our board helped and envisaged the requirement of implementing core banking solution when we were so small, just about 1,500 crores business, which today helped us to grow 15 times in the last 8 years. Correct? To design the right product, design the right process, design the efficiencies, which helped us to move from a 1,500 crores to 22,000 crores. Right? That's the envisaging the future. And then similarly, during COVID, we thought that we should build management for next 5 years first. So it is again future for me. So we actually, at that time, we thought it was the right time to go ahead and search the right talent. Search COVID, there are a lot of implications. The people may not be in a good mood to continue sometime. Probably should. We approached the executive access also during that time. Today I have 3 executives, like CTO, CFO, and CRO. All three hired through Executive Access actually. And then we future-proof our business actually for next 5 years or next 10 years. We build the right talent to prove the future. And then third one is for future-proofing for us is the creating employee loyalty and the customer loyalty. If you have these two in place, many of the disruption can be managed. So our entire policies, the human policies, or a talent management, or the succession plan, the processes, the incentives, all these things are working around the building employee loyalty and the customer loyalty, which is the most important future-proofing for us. I think board is working around this to help us to build ourselves for the future.
Anything that worries you, Dr. Lal? Your business will continue to grow in spite of COVID. It'll grow more in COVID.
Well, it grew in COVID, but that's not the kind of growth we want. And we all, the health sector as a whole grew, by leaps and bounds during COVID. But I told you what the government regulation also did. It brought down the prices of the RT-PCR test. Coming back to your question, the future proofing in our profession is by doing scalability. What ails healthcare? It is accessibility, affordability, and quality. Now, if we can, do these things, maybe not at the same time, but keep at it, keep having, a kind of a straightforward vision here. So if we can, serve the people of India and yet make it profitable. For example, how many people would believe that, from 4,500 rupees of an RT-PCR test, well, everybody in India did for 500 rupees. So it is unthinkable. But with the same yardstick, well, we have got to explore into other areas. I completely agree with Manoj that bottom line is important. But there are stages when bottom line, has to give into scalability, and when your growth, it has to be a profitable growth. The bottom line can come down by a few points here and there, but you cannot, ignore it. So our job is to go to each nook and corner of India where these services are just not available. And the government is trying its best, but we all know what is happening to primary healthcare and what the government is up to. So I think ours is a very complex kind of a thing. Well, human beings, their lives are much more important. I don't want to get into the non-communicable diseases and lifestyle diseases, but who is going to test them? So right now the answer is, well, maybe us, but then, the profitability, the accessibility, the quality, all those things are important. So we are figuring it out, and I'm sure we will.
I'm sure you will, Doctor. Roy, how do companies future-proof themselves in the Nordics? And what's your take?
That's a good question. If I may, I'd like to come back to the cybersecurity question. I had the nice opportunity to talk with one of the leading cyber experts in the world about a month ago. And basically, what he said regarding companies is, do you think internet will end one day? And of course, everybody said no. So, as long as there is internet, there will be cyber criminals, and they are extremely advanced. They're not anymore just looking at necessarily your company, but they're looking at the infrastructure around your company. They can enter your system 2 months before you even realize it. They look at your bank account, realizing that you can only pay so much or not more than that, so they are even realistic in their demands. And for a company who has to be, of course, very prepared for that, it's really critical that you have a plan, like was mentioned earlier, because when the problem hits, you are not able to act necessarily in the most rational way, but you need to have a plan and you need to have partners. And of course, some kind of plan B, so to speak.
A peep into the future, 5 years from now, what will be the number one priority for boards? Roy? I can just quickly take a poll.
I think there are many priorities for the board.
Only one.
I still think the priority in terms of boards is the composition, to have the right people on the bus, so to speak, and to be able to realize where you're going, and therefore also to ensure that the board members are up to speed on what's happening. That's a very broad answer, but I think that's critical in order to get with the details.
Sumita, 2028, one issue.
No, you know, if the momentum continues like the way it is, and I hope it does, especially for our country, we are in growth phase, we are in momentum phase. It will be, the board priorities will be similar to what it is today. I mean, I can come up with a big list of what I want the board to look like, what I want. I would like our judiciary system and other institutions to support the proper functioning of the board.
Manoj, one thing the boards will grapple in 2028?
Technology, most important for future.
Nakul?
I tend to agree on technology. I mean, number of industries that have been wiped out overnight, BlackBerry, just name it, etc., just by change of technology, and not the Kodak moment. We all know about it. Tons, history's flooded with examples. I don't think there's any other of the five, you know, what you call environment, regulation, etc., the five environmental factors, if I may call it, that can alter the landscape of a business as fast as technology can.
Uday? Short answer, just one.
Sustainability, basically, you know, ESG not for compliance, but for opportunity.
Dr. Saab, one.
Profitable growth.
Wonderful. We can go on and on, but time does not permit. We'll take 30 seconds to get a little lighter side of you. All of you will be put across on the hot seat. Dr. Saab, two things that have helped you get here. And just the things.
First thing is our own profession, because, you know, you must realize one thing, that India is still an underdeveloped.
Doctor,
No,
just only one thing that has made Dr. Lal what he is today. You want more Dr. Aravind Lals in the audience.
staying ahead of the curve.
Manoj,
Good values.
sorry?
Good values.
Good values. Fantastic. Nakul?
Two things, attitude. I always read and I've always kept a positive attitude, and discipline. I've always been very disciplined, went to boarding school at 5. Interestingly, and it's not, and I'm not saying it because it's a cliche, but if A was 1 and B was 2 and C was 3 and Z was 26, only 2 words total up to 100, attitude and discipline.
Wonderful. Sumita?
I totally agree with what Mr. Nakul says, but in the recent past, what has got me here is yoga. It has tremendously helped me develop as a person, and I strongly encourage everyone to try it.
Uday?
My passion and the ability to choose the right team member and ability to retain them well.
Roy?
Having been here for a week and having had some very good meetings, I would say energy and harmony.
Wonderful. We've heard a lot and we can go on for another 2 hours. But now's the time for the audience. Questions, please. And we'd like you to state your name, from where you come, and if there's any particular person that you'd like to answer the question, please say so. Krista, please go first. Mic for Krista.
Thank you. Is it on? Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. Fascinating. I have a question for you, and many of you have senior executive roles now, as well as being board members. They're two very different roles. So what are the biggest challenges for someone who's an extraordinary senior manager to become an extraordinary director? Thank you.
You got the question? Anybody would like to go? Manoj, Nakul? I didn't quite get the question. Can you be a little louder, Krista?
Right, okay. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Krista Wallachek. I'm the Panorama partner in Spain. So there are things that make senior executives excellent at what they do. And many of those things that you do are not keys to success in being a director, especially an independent director. So my question for you, especially for those who are working as independent directors, what of your skill set, your abilities, your successes do you have to leave at the door when you become an independent director? Is that clearer now?
Manoj?
It's a huge transition. Like I've been an execution guy whole life, and now I'm an advisor or a director. So I've been hands-on. I've been a micro guy whole life. And from a hands-on micro execution guy, I have to move to become a director who focuses on strategy, focuses on governance, etc. So it's a very, very important transition, and you have to change your mindset and drop your micromanagement behind you to get to that.
It's actually a very valid question, and it's quite hard in the beginning, especially if you are a senior executive in a particular industry and you end up being a director in the same industry. I would strongly suggest not to do that, because it's difficult to stop being one and become another. So pick another industry which you know less of. That's a very good way to develop this distance from execution and learn how to direct.
Nakul, you want to give your perspective? Yeah. Next question, please. Two hands. Yes, please. Our foreign guest. Mike, please. Rafael.
So I'm also a Panorama partner coming from Spain, Chris's colleague. So my question, you've been executives and now you're board directors. And when you meet with your executives, what is that trait that when you just see it, you know that that person's going to do well?
Is this question particularly about the board? When the board sees a person, how to evaluate? Oh, potential from when you are talking to management. Okay, I can give you my perspective. I'm sure others should answer as well. Me as chair, I look for consistency. Another thing, a funny thing is very early on, I've been a consultant for a very long time in my life, a business consultant, and I've had to defend some of my companies in very large commercial cases. So I have learned the importance of interpreting body language and understanding body language. That really helps me a lot to gauge potential.
Great. So, gentlemen behind Trista, please. You wrote, yeah. Mike, please, for it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kapil. So I'm coming in from a perspective of stepping very freshly into my career at a stage where I'm reporting to a board, right? So my question is more from a perspective of what the executive team members.
Sorry, a little louder.
What should the executive team members like us, right, expect from the board, right? And it's from a perspective of, what's a balance of mentoring, probably, things that you talked about, risk awareness, future, things like that. In a way, how should we interact with our boards to get the maximum value out of them?
Yeah. What do they do to get maximum value? Frank and honest Manoj, any tips?
No, I think getting deep insights from the long experience of board members is very important, because board members may have seen more ups and downs in business, more ups and downs, very acute problems, and they will be able to give you solutions. That, I think, is a very, very important contribution of the board to you, and I'm sure you should pick it up. Now, not only in the board, but outside informally. I picked up, for example, when I was executive member or management member, I picked up a lot of good ideas in informal lunches or dinners of the board members, with the board members. For example, SoftBank, Jack Ma was on our board in SoftBank, and I used to spend a lot of time in lunch or dinner with him to understand how he built Alibaba. During the board, I may not be able to ask that. But I think outside the board, you can check out many such things.
So, there are a few questions from our virtual audience as well. Hi.
Yeah, Niago.
Yeah. So I just thought we'll take a few questions from our virtual audience as well. There are a couple of questions which have come around regulations. One is directed to you, Manoj, from Anurag Adlakha. He's asking that, do you believe that boards of regulated entities have a role in trying to influence regulations or policy? And secondly, in addition or building up on this, there's another question which asks that it's a very onerous task for board members today. So if you have to change one regulation around that, would you have a suggestion?
Sorry, I didn't understand the second question.
The second question is that, they feel that it's a very onerous task for board members today in current world. So if there's one regulatory change which can be brought about, of how boards are being looked at from a governance lens, what would that be?
Okay, let me focus on the first one. Regulations now are tighter, getting tighter and tighter by the day, across the world. In India, we are actually running ahead of the world. Our regulations now are more proactive, more updated than the world, in many, many areas, including technology. If you see the latest data protection bill, on technology, we are ahead of the world, because I got a call from friends in the US and Europe that why don't you give us copy and details of data protection bill, etc. So I think we are moving. So board members have to insist on compliances. And if there is something which is non-compliable, in the sense that regulation is really too tough, then it has to really help the management to go to the government, give a detailed feedback on what changes are required in the regulations. So the board can also be a bridge between the management and the government to help regulations become more friendly. But it's very, very clear, now governments are very tough on compliances, and hence board's key responsibility is to get compliances right.
There's one more question, which is like, what kind of people review framework?
Neha, a little louder, please.
Am I audible?
Yeah, now you are.
Okay. So what kind of people review framework, shall be done with NRC is a question which comes from our virtual audience for anyone from the panel who might want to address it.
Nakul, you want to take this one?
So how does NRC look at the people review framework?
How does NRC look at the people framework, review framework?
NRC, I think.
Performance review.
Yeah, I think firstly is the composition of the NRC is very important, right? It must be headed by, it has to be mandatorily be headed by an independent director, then lay down very clear norms. In fact, Manoj was just mentioning, and the new company law states that every board member has to rate his peer, and you have to rate the board collectively together, etc. But NRC to a large extent would go on the advice, they would actually vet what the senior management has recommended to them as far as the senior management is concerned.
Yes. Lady, please. Atul will come to you later. Ladies first.
Good evening, I'm Bhavna from S&P Global. My question really is, boards play such a crucial role in shaping the way organizations think about the future. How do you as members of the board hold yourself accountable for the impact that you create?
Oh, effectiveness. Manoj, you want to take? Some of the countries are actually, it's compulsory in the developed world to look at the board.
I think the impact of board has to be measured and clearly delineated, because if board doesn't impact and doesn't measure the impact, board will become very negligent. So board's own performance has to be measured, appraised, and feedback given. And that's the only way to keep board very competent and on the toes. Otherwise, board guys can just come and go. So now actually performance of the board is becoming very critical.
Dr. Saab, would you measure the performance of the board? Make them accountable?
I think that's a difficult question, but I would purely, see it from the Indian context, and that is that the regulatory, conformances, etc. They are very, very important, as you've just heard that we are ahead of many other countries. So you need somebody, with right knowledge and the maturity to guide you through this maze of, the new regulations and whatever the new savvy things are coming in.
Last question. Atul, you raise your hand.
Thank you, Ronesh. Just a quick one. I was recently reading an article, and a couple of them actually, that there is a move in some countries to have much younger board members, those who are in their 40s and maybe even younger actually. I mean, it just raises a question in my mind that board members are actually supposed to be ones who have a lot of accumulated years of experience and knowledge where they can add a lot of value. But the reason for this move, which I believe is because a lot of new companies, new age companies are coming in with much younger executive teams, and hence they relate much better to their age group board members. Would be interesting to see your perspective on this.
I think I'll take this question one second. In the younger age group, as I say, somebody senior had mentioned in one of these things. In the younger age group, the Josh is there, but the hosh is not there. And later on in life, the hosh is there and the Josh is missing. So cutting a long story short, you have got to have hosh and Josh. Exactly. So if you get a youngster, well, he'll do all the new things which are possible, but he lacks the experience and he may have the knowledge, but he may not have the wisdom. And I think that is very important.
Wonderful. Very, very well put. Roy.
I think a very relevant question. We are now having a generation which has lived all their life in internet, so to speak, and they are entering many relevant, important positions in different companies. I think with the younger generation, for sure, seeing some of our day-to-day ways of working in a different way, different value base, values which are maybe much more developed in terms of environment and so on. I think a company should be very thorough in evaluating of getting or having some of this sort of younger generation on board, because they can really give you perspective and also help with the transition, a little bit dependent on your business, but I would say it applies to any business.
Uday, Hosh or Josh?
I would like to add actually to what Roy has said. The younger generation today probably can see the future much better than the older generation. So they will be able to comprehend the future. What is changing in technology? What is changing the risk? What is changing across the globe? I think they will be able to comprehend better than us to some extent, particularly on technology, which is driving the whole future.
Nakul, your take?
Just want to add, 40s is not young anymore, it's normal.
I think as doctor said, it has to be a combination of both. If I was to independently form a board, it would be a good combination of both. Just as you manage, expertise of different field, so would you look at age matrix also and balance age also. Some of both.
Nakul, some of the people have sort of suggested 1/3 of the seats we reserve for women in boards. What's your take on that?
I have the honor of working with some on the ITC board, and I must say some great contributions, except very difficult to find. That's what I'd say, but yes, why not? If it's 1/3, why not? You have to make a start somewhere. Ideally, it should be balanced both ways, right? But certainly 1/3 should be a norm.
Dr. Saab?
I think this 1/3 business, both in parliament and in boards, has gone a bit too far. I mean, we have to honor meritocracy. Just because there is a lady available and you must fill up the rest of the seats with ladies, doesn't make sense. If she's deserving, why 1/3? You can have even 50%, 75%.
Uday.
I think, why not 100%? My 100% customers are women. So why not 100% board is women?
No idea, Ronesh, how much of conditioning that I need to face every single day of my life. So from the conditioning perspective, just having more phases do help. And psychological conditioning goes a very long way, much more than we are willing to admit.
Roy, I had come to you last, Manoj, and you know the reason why. Roy, what's your take?
I would say that if you look at boards, and we have been talking about a very large scale of aspects, what we also should not forget is the work within the board itself, and how do they evaluate each other's, and how do they see the skills that we have. And I think with the question which was just asked, that you are critical enough to understand that we need maybe some other skill that we don't have, and be open with that, because a good board also learns from each other and adds value, so 1 + 1 is 3. And that's something which in today's world, again, with so much information, I believe it's very hard for one single board member to really stay aware, not to mention what documents I have to prepare for the meeting and so on. So you really need support also for that part.
What is the reason, Manoj, you were so much in favor of 1/3 reservation for women on boards?
No, I didn't favor 1/3. Okay, let me clarify. My life's board is 100% women. And it's running very well. And I believe that women will give extremely mature and judicious leadership of the board. I'm not making a comparison, because comparisons are not good, but women have lost out in the last hundreds of years of leadership positions, of leadership roles, board roles, whatever you call it. And I think it is high time that we come back and really recognize their maturity, their wisdom, and bring them onto leadership positions in companies and the boards. And I believe that, this 1/3 thing is a more political thing. Forget it for a minute. I feel as much as we can get, because it's something which we have at hand. This is a skill, this is a competence, this is maturity we have at hand. Why don't we pick it up? But what Nakul is saying is right. It's difficult because as a society, except for Nordic countries where women have done fantastic, I think the Prime Minister, many boards have so many women, but look at the entire world. The percentage of women directors is so low, which I think is really a bad news, because we are missing out on half of the humanity, and the maturity, and the judiciousness, and mothers who have nurtured children. Company is like a child. It has to be nurtured. And women know the best. So I'm very, very clear on this that we need to maximize women board members.
Wonderful. We're coming towards the end. 10 seconds response for you from one question that a lot of people have put up. And that is, a lot of budding members here who want to be independent board members. 2 things that they need to do to get there. Dr. Lal.
For budding board members, this is my personal wishful thinking that they should be allowed as observers or invitees on senior boards. I know it's very difficult kind of a proposition, and this should be done. And also the youngsters can form, kind of a governance committee under CII, FICCI, etc., and discuss their problems and get to know what the real life is.
Thank you. Manoj, short response.
Yeah, start looking at the future opportunities and threats much more deeply.
Nakul?
I agree with Manoj, but from an individual point of view, if you were to ask me, I think a single factor that makes success or failure is your self-development. And self-development is development that you've done, the amount you've read, the amount of knowledge you've acquired, and that must continue. The amount you learn, as you said, you learn formally, informally. Life never stops teaching, so never stop learning. And that hunger to learn is what's going to get you on many boards.
Yeah, incidentally, Nakul used to be a DJ. So a lot that he's learned from there. Smita.
Learn the big picture, how to evaluate the big picture, and exposure.
Thank you. Udaya, short.
Ability to bring the outside perspective and ability to question and have the spine to withstand.
Roy?
I think enough exposure to different businesses, industries, but with a clear expertise in your substance.
Thank you, all of you. It's been a wonderful and enlightening evening. A big round of applause for all of them. We could have gone on for another 2 hours and still a lot to learn. For budding board members, there's some good news. 23rd or 24th of November, we in Executive Access will be doing a 2-day workshop in Delhi. So do write to us if you are interested. Thank you, all of you. It's been wonderful, wonderful, and very, very kind of all of you to have spared the time.